Welcome to a weekly movie talk on a Friday. Today, the stream before Halloween, the Halloween weekend, or like the weekend before Halloween, because Halloween is a Monday this year. And this time we talk about a very special movie. Not only like a special movie for me, for us, but also a special movie for whole cinema history. Since this was the first vampire movie in history, an unlicensed version of Dracula is today we're going to talk about Nosferatu from eine Symphonie des Grauens from 1922 by
Man, you said you
F.W.
said you said that so smooth, man. I was like, how am I gonna say it?
Well, it's my mother tongue, so I don't have to struggle like with some English
Yeah,
words. Yeah, as always, welcome my good friend and co-host Sean. Hey Sean, how are you today? Ready for
I
Halloween?
I am doing fine. It's gonna be a great weekend. Halloween is this Monday, the dreadful Monday. So I go to work and Halloween's happening. But it's been a pretty cool month of talking these horror movies, and we get to close it out with the vampire movie that started it all.
Exactly. Not the first horror movie, but the first vampire movie. Yeah, of course. This movie I've seen like very early on, since when you learn about movie history, especially since it's a German movie, it's very accessible here, and of course, everybody says, "Oh, you gotta watch that." This is like the beginning of not the beginning of horror movies, but this is one of the horror movies that is so often quoted in so many other movies, and that introduced so much to the vampire lore by itself, by just trying to be not only trying but having to be different than the source material, since they didn't get the rights to make a Dracula movie. They had to change some stuff, and even that didn't help. So uh, the widow of Bram Stoker ordered like all the copies of Nosferatu to be destroyed. However, since the movie was already distributed in foreign countries, a lot of roles survived, and luckily that's the reason why we can still watch it today. Since when you look back in the silent movie era, it's so frustrating. There are so many movies that are lost,
Yeah.
that we only have like descriptions of people that saw it, and those people are also already gone. So there's no more people that are around that witness like the premiere of these movies. Like one of the famous movies is like an early Bela Lugosi movie that he still shot in Austria, which is Der Januskopf movie that is lost and probably will never. Sometimes we are lucky, there's so many movies in archives. It's like the same with Nosferatu, or like with Metropolis, where they discover lost material. Since that's the other thing of the silent movies, there's so many different versions of them around. So um there goes a lot of work into trying to rediscover what was like the original version.
Mm.
Since sometimes, in the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia back then, they cut the movie differently. And when you, of course, discover the roles there, they not automatically you can say, oh, yeah, that's the original version. No, it's like it's a little altered version. Then you find a lost copy somewhere that you don't know its existence. Suddenly you see, oh, there's scenes in there that nobody ever has seen. It's crazy with these movies, and especially with Nosferatu, since it was it was a movie that shouldn't exist at the time because it went against the without license. It also immediately became public domain in the US. So you have like a lot of different cut versions of different sort of quality that were like put together there, and then even later versions where they added sound to it, like dialogue, which very weird.
It's funny reading up on the whole thing with the license and how it was unauthorized that they did this movie and stuff, especially back in the 20s. You wouldn't think about copyrights laws and license and stuff like that back then, you know, you would think that rules were still kind of like simmering like on the lower level. But you know, the fact that they tried to get this movie destroyed, you know, it's funny that luckily they distributed it to the other countries and stuff, because
Yeah.
imagine if they got their way and they destroyed this movie completely. Like we would have never.
Hey, Heidi. Oh, that's Shadow of the Vampire from the year 2000 with Willem Dafoe as Graf Orlok, which is also a fantastic movie. And that basically the movie is based on an urban legend, which is totally not true. That Max Schreck, the guy who played Nosferatu, is actually a real vampire. But no, Max Schreck was
Hey,
before.
the design really made him look like a freakish vampire. Like out of all the vampires, I feel like his vampire is still a bit freakish with the long, clawy fingers and the bald head and how he
Yeah.
looks. It's definitely the most visually stunning and creepiest vampire.
Absolutely, and Shadow of the Vampire is a really fantastic movie, and it shows, that in cinema history, like so far, three people have played Nosferatu from movies that were released. There's one unreleased movie so far, and there's an upcoming remake by Eggers, where I think Skarsgård, the guy who plays it, is playing Nosferatu, Graf Orlok. But so far, three fantastic actors have played Nosferatu. First, of course, Mark Schreck. Then we have also, yeah, of course, Willem Dafoe in the year 2000. Then we have Klaus Kinski, who played Nosferatu twice. In the remake by Werner Herzog in 1979, and then in the unofficial sequel, Nosferatu in Venice from 1988. Yeah, I'm not a fan
Okay.
of the Salem movie. I think it's too long and boring with most of the
Well,
stuff that Stephen King did. However, you can totally see that the head vampire, like with the two front teeth, is totally inspired by Nosferatu.
you know, this movie is an hour and 34 minutes, but it felt longer than an hour and 34 minutes. And it's probably because it's a silent movie. It relies on expressionism and visual cues that I felt like the more the movie goes on, I'm like, man, it's kind of slow pace. It's like it's moving at a slower pace than usual. And it felt like a 2 hour movie condensed to an hour and a half.
Absolutely. I watch a lot of silent movies, and this is a regular thing, especially since nowadays we're used to entertainment that has more means of expressing itself, ergo like the voice.
Yeah.
So watching silent movies, of course, you can't be next to it like on your phone or look at somebody else and still get the story. You really have to focus on it because you have to read the in
The
between
text.
the text, and then of course you have to witness the acting. So you really have to watch the mimic, and this is also the reason why when in silent movie you have so much overacting. For example, Nicolas Cage, who produced Shadow of the Vampire, who is a huge fan of German expressionism. Uh, because nowadays when we see Nicolas Cage overacting, like he himself says, like he's copying the actors from the expressionist era. And of course, since now in the movie you have voice and so many other means to tell a story, it very much the overacting seems so crazy, and this is why Nicolas Cage, today you see me like, oh, this guy is crazy, but put him in a silent movie and it will totally function because if you don't have the voice, you really have to use the non-verbal means that you have and the parable, the non-verbal means that you have to really get your character, get like everything your character is about through.
And that's what makes those silent movies work is the facial expressions.
Yes.
The look of shock, the look of happiness, the look of fear, the look of sadness. you really feel though what those characters are going through, especially like when Hunter was, getting finding out about Nosferatu, that he ain't what he seems, and he starts to express fear and danger, and it
Yeah.
really like captures that on screen.
And I think this is something that is so eerie and uncanny when you watch The Shadow of the Vampire, because of course it's a movie that has a voice in there. However, when Willem Dafoe plays Orlok, of course he really mimics the expressionism of the original movie. So it seems so uncanny, like to have like this overacting in there.
I mean,
Since
you
yeah,
you you have a scene with Nosferatu just standing there,
mhm,
and all you seeing is him shrouded in blackness, because the door he's standing in,
yeah,
dark and stuff. But it's his presence and his visual look that scares you more than most of what most horror movies try and scare you with jump scares and stuff. Like, nah, back then it was about the visual look, the scenery, and how it's presented, that you is embedded into your brain, that visual you can't get out of.
exactly, like the contrast, like the creeping shadow that is coming closer, uh, and of course also like the prosthetics and the makeup was like top notch. So Mark Schreck really got into that role, and it's one of the best portrayals of vampire ever. The the other thing is, I think what the movie suffers a little bit from is I don't think that the rest of the cast is as like as remarkable as Mark Schreck is. Like Mark Schreck clearly steals the show, and Gustav von Wagenheim, who plays Thomas Hutter, who is the character that in the original novel was Jonathan Harker. He's not bad, but I think he was just the third choice for that role. So Murnau uh, was not like wasn't so happy with that.
I mean,
Um,
I thought he did a pretty decent job with his expressionism, and his state of mind, especially like trying to get back to his wife and stuff, and the sullen of fear of what will happen. I thought he did a pretty good job, doing that.
he's not a poster boy.
Like I said, I wouldn't like consider myself a scholar on silent films. So I don't know how the role of acting was like back then, how you had to sell the performance. But I thought for me he sold it pretty well.
I mean, he's no Keanu Reeves, Jonathan Harker. Even though maybe they should have put Keanu Reeves in a silent movie because his British accent was horrible.
But yeah, for
Right.
me, I thought he was fine for me. But I agree. Max stole the show. It was all about him. You kind of wish you see more, but because of how his character is portrayed throughout the film, you want him shrouded in shadowness. You want to
Yeah.
see less of him. So when he does pop up, you're curious and stuff. Like this man built a pyramid of coffins just to get it so on the ship. So it's like he definitely had the plan on when he was moving to America. Like, yeah, I'm gonna take all these coffins with me.
Not American in that case, of course.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah, not Mike.
Wiesborg, which is a,
It,
like a
it felt it, it
fictional
felt it felt it felt like a Sinbad tale where they was going across the country or across the world or something.
yeah. So basically, going from Siebenbürgen, Transylvania, yeah, to northern Germany. I think this movie. I think this movie plays. I think it takes place in the early 19th century. I think around 1820 around. So I think at that point it was still like part of the monarchy, and of course then you only have to cross basically one border to the German Empire.
Mm.
So yeah, actually no, actually it was still before the German Empire. It was still so basically you didn't have to cross the border because it was the Deutsche Bund, and yeah, it was very different with borders in that period of time.
So what was the guy who played Knock? Was he like a servant to Nosferatu?
I think the thing is also that Nosferatu, like that Orlov, has no servants in his castle. This is also quite different from the novel from Dracula, where of course Jonathan Harker had some sexual experiences in Dracula's castle. People interpreted that scenes like in many different ways. Uh, However, in Nosferatu, it's just it's just a Count Orlok. The interesting thing about it, which is also very often mentioned, is that a lot of people found it unbelievable in the Dracula novel. You know that Jonathan Harker, got such a rich dish to eat from, since nobody
Hmm.
would have see Dracula preparing them himself, since he clearly has no servants except for the vampire chicks that may or may not exist.
He just had
So,
food appear out thin there or something.
and also the thing is, how can somebody who lived for so many centuries, and didn't have to eat anything than human blood, like, do they still know what people eat?
I mean, all the
So
settlers there, they ain't going in that area. I mean, even
yeah,
even Hutter had to travel himself.
yes. So I find it more realistic how it was shown in Nosferatu, and even better later in the Werner Herzog remake. That since Herzog also like asked himself these questions, and he did it very great. But also the original, you see, I think you can see that there's some bread there and other stuff. Like there's nothing very sophisticated.
And how this man cut his finger, man? Like, come on, bro, man. And then Nosferatu sees that, and then he start feeling for the blood, and then he pass out in the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, this creepy dude is backing me up into a chair. Let me pass out.
That's the thing nowadays. What is funny when you watch it, of course, since it's such a different kind of acting, you always think, how did people perceive that back in the day? And when you read some contemporary criticisms about the movie, that movie was not received very well back in the days. A lot of people made fun of that. There was one review that made fun, when he arrived in this man, he carried his own coffin, that he looked like somebody who wanted to quickly go to the post before it closes. Uh, so I think it's very interesting that also back in the day, like the people for people, some sceneries and expressionism was awkward. So it was not like back in the people say, oh yeah, that's the way it is. So they also said that some scenes are like awkward.
You know, it could have been a movie in itself, but when he was on the boat and each member of the crew kept getting picked off and dying,
Oh yeah,
that could have been a horror movie in itself. Like you stuck on a boat around water and you got a vampire on board.
absolutely. Vampire on a boat, movie right there.
And then, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna jump overboard like that one dude? Man, you either gonna drown or get ate by the sharks.
Yeah, vampire sharks. Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes. Actually, this is also something that the Lost World did like a homage to, of course, when the ship with the T Rex arrived and nobody was on board anymore.
I I still say I wish we had deleted scene where we saw the T Rex wrecking shit on that ship.
Especially getting the captain without ruining the whole building around. But yeah,
But
there's
yeah,
a lot of recently. 2 weeks ago I watched Morbius, and the ship in Morbius is called the Murnau, which is of course also a tribute to Nosferatu.
Nice.
Fun fact: I enjoyed Morbius.
I was waiting for you to say that. I was waiting. If he said he enjoyed Morbius, then I might have to give it a watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a fantastic movie, but I think it was a very
Yeah.
enjoyable movie. It was like I I watched it and I really thought like, why are people hating on this? I get it, like the speed effects and everything are. I think it's a very subjective if you like those effects or not. But I think it was an enjoyable movie.
People hating on it because it's Sony and not Marvel.
Yeah. I mean, also, I have to say that I didn't read a lot of Morbius and Spider Man, so I don't know how accurate it is to the Morbius in the comics. But like as a movie alone, I enjoyed it very much, and I would totally rewatch it. I think I would give it like 7 out of 10.
Hey, like I said, man, we all have different opinions on stuff. So
Yeah,
sometimes you gotta ignore the critics and watch it for your own.
exactly. That's always the best way to go. Is just experience for itself. And since it was on a streaming service that I have, I was like, well, let's give it a chance. I expected to watch it and just laugh about it when I heard about it, and then was watching it. Is like, you know what? I'm enjoying this,
And
and
you know what?
I hate the act. I
Jared
hate.
Leto.
I absolutely hate this guy, and I enjoyed the movie.
I thought he was a waste in the last Blade Runner movie.
I still have to watch the last Blade Runner movie, the new one.
It was okay, but I stick to the original, man.
I mean,
Rutger Hauer.
the original is just perfect.
And that movie took me years to really sit down and watch it. But we're getting too far away from
Yeah,
Nosferatu.
exactly. Let's go.
Let's get
Let's go back to the real Murnau and Nosferatu.
now. I mentioned this backstage. What I like about it is how Nosferatu is so uses the plague as a way, and he's not like using it, but he has rats in his coffins, and at the time,
Basically he's like a plague bringer.
yeah, he has rats in his coffins. I liked how that they bust up the coffin and nothing but rats popped out, and people at that time associated with the plague because the plague, there was that era of plagues going around, and I like that when he got to the new area and they start investigating and stuff, and they looked at the document of the captain, and he said plague, people dying of the plague. They start getting all like plague. Go to your homes, lock your doors, stay away. And then the one dude, as soon as he saw, he used his hanky to cover his face. I was like, look, you wish you had a mask now. I laughed at that because I love how the plague mentally mess with your mind where you think now you gotta cover yourself up now.
Yeah, because it's like an invisible killer. And this is
Yeah,
something that I really love about Nosferatu, which of course we don't have in Dracula, is that with him come the rats, and with the rats come the plague. So Nosferatu himself is a plague bringer. And there are many interesting theories why, because of course it's an expressionism movie. Is It's like it's very subjective what you feel like the reasoning for the plague is. Of course, historically, it was shortly after the Spanish flu ended. So you also had like this pandemic that was very contemporary. Then, on the other hand, it's also this movie was shot in 1921, which was 3 years after the First World War. Of course, back then it was still called the Great War because there was no, the second one was ahead. Um, so that's the other thing, and especially for everybody of us who was like in the Mittelmächte who lost the war, it was crushing. The huge loss of territory, and also the defeat of the Great War and the poverty and everything that came with it. You can also say like this was like a plague that came from outside into the German lands. So there's there's so many different ways to interpret this, and I think that's the beautiful thing about it. And for me, that's also the magic about expressionism, that that you can interpret it so many ways.
And it's funny. I'm watching this movie, and all I'm thinking about is the video game A Plague's Tale, and it's the recent one. They got like all these rats chasing after you and shit, and I'm like, good lord. But yeah, it's interesting how they utilized it in this movie. You know, the plague bringer, and people are more afraid of the plague, not knowing the bigger threat that is Nosferatu. You know,
Yeah,
and I
that's also very interesting because you have two different kinds of of horror, of terror in this. Of course, first you have like the vampire, but the vampire threat is actually pretty much narrowed down because he is only interested in Thomas' wife Ellen, who is the Mina Harker of this movie. But of course, with him come the rats and the plague, and the plague are a way bigger menace all around. So, of course, one could also say that by having such an evil personate, like right there, that everything around it will also like decay and die. So this is also an interesting theory. So I think that the adding the plague was a very good idea to have like different threat levels. Like of course, like the vampire who is interested in sucking people dry, and then also the whole plague thing. And
yeah, because they it needed something to get the town riled up,
yeah,
and it was a nice backdrop to what he really wanted when he got there. Now I do like it was a little bit comical how he was carrying his coffin, to his place, then looking around and stuff.
like I said, even people back then thought it was funny.
I, I, I was like, yo, he looked really out of place doing this, but
But I
again,
love the yeah, I love the play with the shadows in those scenes. I think that was
yeah,
very
especially like when he's coming up the steps and you see his shadow in the hand.
yeah, the final scene. That's also another interesting fact, which was also like a huge difference between Nosferatu and Dracula, is that one person was completely cut from everything. So there is no Van Helsing in Nosferatu. So the big antagonist of Dracula is not in this movie. So the power structure is so different since there is no threat to Nosferatu, except for like the basically that there has to be a woman of virtue that makes him forget time, so the sunlight can kill him. So which makes basically Ellen like the I think probably one of the first female like heroes in horror movies.
I don't know, man. She was like giving too many weird vibes for me. Like if I was Heather, I would have divorced her as soon as I got back because I'm like she acted real weird and outlandish.
Yeah, because right from the beginning, when Thomas was telling you, oh, he's going to Graf Orlok, like to Transylvanian,
Yeah, she was
um,
sad.
she already sensed there's something bad about it. So she had all these visions already. So I think that's very interesting since there's no Van Helsing that the hero
Which
role
and
with the ultimate
and
self-sacrifice comes from the woman.
and if she knew that, it makes you think that she had some past there.
Who knows? That's the beautiful thing about it. Uh, also, like how, also maybe like because you don't know how far the powers go. Um, since
Yeah,
when
because
you watch the movie, you think,
soon as he saw the picture of her, then all of a sudden like his mood changed and now he had a purpose.
yeah. So that's very interesting. And that's also funny when you watch the remake by Werner Herzog. He put Van Helsing in there. Uh, that's the one thing I don't like about the remake is that Herzog, since Dracula was public domain by then, used like the original names with Jonathan Harker, Mina, and Dracula. I really like to be Nosferatu to be its own thing. However, it was interesting that they put Van Helsing in there, but Van Helsing was so incompetent, so that the girl, like, so that Ellen, like Mina, still was like the hero at the end. And only then Van Helsing realized, oh my god, like the woman was right. So that was very interesting. And also, since we already talked that Nosferatu is a work of expressionism, it's so interesting in the 70s in the remake, it's a work of surrealism, which, of course, are very similar but also different. With
Hmm.
expressionism, that is more like. Like a very subjective, expressive, and like a personal feeling experience. It's like doing a painting without a reference. But of course, surrealism is like very dreamlike, and it like surpasses reality and basically creates a reality that is above our reality. So that's very interesting that you have like the two movies with very different approaches. Even though Werner Herzog really the movies feels really like what Nosferatu would have looked like if Muna would have did it in the 70s. So I totally recommend the remake. It's masterful, and Werner Herzog is a genius.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a watch.
Mm.
But the one thing I do like about, and I've said this earlier, the expressionism, the visual, and how the use of the situations enhances the movie. Now, I've said that it does feel like a long movie because of all the
Yeah,
text you're reading. It's like the text when they put all the text on the screen. It's like a pause moment.
yeah.
We gotta pause it, read it, and then move to the next point. You know, it
It really basically also the movie sucks you dry, like your attention span.
it's like no Toronto came and sucked me dry from reading all this shit. You know what I mean? But like it's a slow build, and you do get to that point where you want to see the ending. But for me, I felt like because I've seen so many vampire movies outside of this, because this one was the rarest that I've seen. I felt that it was kind of a letdown for him to just go out the way he did. Now I understand how you say the passage of time, the visual time, and him being tied to Ellen kind of like disrupted him knowing that, hey, sun is coming up, I got to go. But it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had he got away, had he bit Ellen, left, and still been in town. How are they going to defeat him? Because then
That's
now
actually
it's interesting. You have to create a Van Helsing in terms of building him up. Like because Hutter knows about him, but he's at this point in stage. It would have been a nice way for him to become a Van Helsing because his wife was killed by Nosferatu. So now he's hell bent on revenge, and he could have built up to that point of becoming something like a Van Helsing, saying, "I need to take this monster out."
actually for that I really recommend to watch the remake and the unofficial sequel of the remake, since since I think you can have very interesting interpretations. Like, can you truly defeat evil, and can you truly defeat something that is so old? So
Because and the thing is, remember when we talked in Blackula about how the doctor knew about the vampires, reading up books and stuff like that. Back then, there was no real transcripts on that. So how would they know how to defeat it?
and there were like already you've seen like there are books, of course, because vampires come from folklore. Like they have the book, that also like Alan reads it and see, okay, I have to do it. Like there's nobody else who can defeat him, and only I can be like the decoy for the sun that defeats him. Which is also interesting that this movie introduced the sunlight as an enemy for the vampires, which of course was not the case in the original Dracula novel.
Yeah, it weakened him in Dracula,
Yeah, but here
but he
like
was
it really.
It,
It dusted him.
yeah, turned them into poof. but
Yeah.
it would have been interesting. But that was my only like nitpick of the movie. That, and for a movie that was like an hour and a half, it felt like 2 hours of my life
Yeah.
being drained reading text. But
I
I
mean,
thought the visuals, the cast of Max as Nosferatu, and just the way that the movie has these visual effects that really like get embedded in your brain. Like when Hutter opens up the casket and he's laying there and he's not even moving because he's in deep sleep. It's like it felt like kind of scary just to think about it. Like you open that shit up
very.
and he's not moving. It's like that's prime opportunity to kill him, but you ain't thinking that.
Yeah, that's also something that has been fantastically replicated with Kinsey and with Defoe. Like all these scenes are fantastic. I think, and this is also where I'm fighting with myself. I think that Nosferatu is a very difficult movie to to basically give it like a rating, or to basically say like how much you liked it or what you disliked, since since it's like this movie that inspired so many other movies in the future. Um, of course, you always will say, "Oh, it's a fantastic movie," this play with the shadows and everything. Can we overlook that this movie has a lot of lengths, that not all actors are up to par with Mark Schreck? The contemporary criticism was not kind to the movie, and also the movie flopped big time. Like the UFA didn't really show it in all the big cinemas, just in very small cinemas. And Brana Film, that did the movie, also went bankrupt afterwards. So this movie was not a success. It was not like it came out and people said, "Oh, this is like the horror movie that will inspire horror movies to come, etc." No, it was not seen like that. And nowadays we see it as this big movie. This throws its big shadow over the whole genre of horror. Uh, this is often something we forget. When a movie inspires so many other movies, that it almost becomes like a dogma that you're not allowed to criticize that movie. However, like Nosferatu has a lot of flaws. I think it's still a very enjoyable movie nowadays, but I wouldn't say like it's like a fantastic horror movie. I The things that I'm saying is that this movie has. I mean, it's magical and everything, but so much could have been done better, and probably would have done better if Muno would have had more time, more money, etc. for it. This is why I think that the remake from Werner Herzog is, in my opinion, the definitive Nosferatu movie. Since Werner Herzog was able to do everything that Muno couldn't do. So, and of course, he always, uh, it's very difficult to also like to rate a silent movie and to compare it with a modern movie.
Yeah,
For me personally, I think that silent movies and later on movies that had voice are two different, completely two different thing.
yeah,
It's like you can't compare like a pear with an apple.
yeah. I agree. And
Mm.
and like you said, it does make the movie difficult to rate because while I
Yeah,
enjoy aspects of it, I was like looking at the time, like, man, how much longer this is?
yeah.
Because I was like, it feels like a long movie, but just because you gotta read all the text that's involved in it, and I'm trying to like make sure I read all the text and make sure I have understanding of everything. Now the thing is, some of the subplots in it, like the knot thing, her knot.
Yeah.
They had a little witch hunt, when he escaped from jail, and they're chasing him in there, and then they captured him without actually showing him get captured. And I was like, was that really like necessary? Like it felt like it padded out the movie, and we really didn't necessarily get. Because that's why I asked you the question: was he like a servant? Because it felt
He
like
was
he
like
knew he knew about
Hmm.
Nosferatu, and that's why he offered him the place.
I think having Hardy in there is a little bit of an anachronism in that sort that this is supposed to be Renfield, but it didn't fully have Renfield's plot. So basically, it feels like that this character was grandfathered in by the source material.
Yeah, because he
In my opinion, I think it's also done way better in the remake.
yeah, because here it's almost comical, with
Yeah,
Knott's character. You know, like I'm trying to like have a better understanding of his character because he starts out right away creepy as hell. Like, yeah, there's something
yeah,
sinister about him. And then he becomes like this comical short dude, old dude that's running away from crowds and stuff. And then he's like, "Oh, the master is dead," and stuff. And I'm like, did you really have ties? Like, I'm trying to like figure out this, but it's neither here or there. I felt like he was kind of irrelevant to what the main story was, so I could have lived without that
yeah.
character.
It's way better in the remake where also like Dracula gives him like basically the order like you go now and bring the plague like to Riga like into the northern part uh, of the like into the Balticum. So here like that there's way more. The plot is thicker in the remake.
All right. Trying to think of anything else. I like I said, the wife she was acting very weird, especially when like Hutter was on his way and like she gets the letter from him and she doesn't feel interested or there's no happiness on her. Like she got a letter from Hutter and stuff. She was just giving me weird vibes throughout that whole second act of the movie.
Yeah, she was.
Oh shit!
She was like, oh, hot girls. So let's get this sex line out of the live chat.
It's funny it popped up when I'm talking about the only significant female in the movie.
What is also very interesting about the movie, which makes it differ a lot from other movies that was done in the time, is that it was shot on set. I mean, on scene, like in real castles. You have many nature scenes in there, since a lot of the movies back then were only shot like on sets.
Our favorite Carpathian had his mountains in the background.
Yeah, and this is a castle in Slovakia, like the castle of Olgate. It's not a Transylvania castle; it's in Slovakia, and this is also the same castle where I think they shot Dragonheart.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah.
I do like the scenery of the travel to Transylvania.
Oh yeah. Also like the werewolf where they use the hyena.
Yeah, I was look like that's a fucking hyena. That ain't no werewolf.
I think it was a very interesting choice, especially since, of course, back in the day, hyenas were not so like. Who has seen a hyena in Germany, like in 1926? So of course, it would seem like a creature that is unnatural because maybe you've seen it like in a book in a library or something, but or maybe in a zoo back then. But it's not as as
And
nowadays
and
with all the
and
sort
and
of stories, it's a
and
hyena.
and, and speaking of werewolf, the fucking captain of the ship had to be a goddamn werewolf. That dude had them thick ass sideburns. I'm like, yo, this dude ain't normal, man. He looked like he could transform to a werewolf. I didn't understand his exit. Like he's strapping himself to the boat. I was like, yo, bro, your man just jumped off the ship. That's telling you something right there.
That is basically it's when you're captain you have your duty and so like I'm probably gonna die. However, the ship must arrive.
And it arrived safely and didn't even crash into the dock. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. I love how Nosferatu was stalking him. You know, he stalked. That's why that boat scene is like, if that was an extended sequence, we could have saw how Nosferatu like picked off each and every one of them, and it would have made for some really good tension.
Yes, like I said, I think that whole boat scene could be a movie on its own, since everybody loves a good movie where people are like in a situation where they can't escape from and they're getting picked off one by one.
It makes you not want to go in the bowels of the ship.
Yeah, I mean, like basically, man, the first Alien movie is nothing else but basically gothic horror in space.
Yeah, it's like tight spaces, and you know
Yeah.
you got a vampire hunting you, and then you got the threat of the plague. You know, when you see all the rats and stuff, it's like, oh man, I can't imagine being on that shit. But yeah, I like I said, I enjoyed the movie, but it is difficult to rate it, and
Mhm.
I want to see the second one to have a semblance of what that movie gives. You know, because you're saying that it's like much better and much more definitive. So
Yeah,
I definitely have to watch that.
exactly. But like I said, for Nosferatu, of course it's something very different. Than I mean, I'm watching a lot of silent movies, but I would even say for silent movies, uh, it's very difficult to watch. I also watched from Murnau Faust, which is a course about Dr. Faustus, and that movie had way more plot. Like, and I think really Nosferatu, on the one hand, suffers from it that they shortly had to change so much since they didn't get the rights to do Dracula. So they had to change the script because they still tried. And of course, when you change some stuff, that it would be still legal. Turned out it wasn't. Uh, so would be interesting, Maybe they said, "Oh, we have to put out Van Helsing and make this otherwise." So of course you have these huge plot holes that they just had to like fill very shortly. So I
Yeah,
don't think that this movie is so coherent, which is, of course, on the one hand is like a big flaw in terms of pacing. On the other hand, I think also that it gives something vastly different to Orlok and to the Menace.
yeah. I'm glad we talked about it because it is different, especially for me. You know,
Yeah,
it's something different, and I'm always about challenging myself and watching something that's different.
yeah,
So I do like it. And one I will highlight, I do think the music in the movie definitely, especially during the Nosferatu scenes, really heightens the tension. They
yeah.
really pick some good music to elevate it.
Yeah, I think it always depends, of course, the version. I mean, the original version is the one with the pieces by Hans Erdmann. Uh, you have, also, of course, some with some different versions. I think there's also one version where there's like a band playing. When you think back and you would have watched this in the cinema back in the day, you had like a live orchestra that is accompanying the movie.
You know, it's funny you said that because I was watching Tales from the Territories, on wrestling,
Hmm.
and they talking about the Memphis area, and they said the match between Jeff Jarrett and I forgot his name, but they had like a musical band played throughout the match, and each time they do something different, the music elevates the match by having a different piece of interpolation, especially building to the climax. So that's pretty interesting. And I've never seen that shit done before ever. So to have
There's a
like live music played throughout the movie it
Mhm.
is something.
Yeah, there's a really cool band from New York. It's called Morricone Youth, and they very often, they play like their versions of a soundtrack, and they have concerts in New York where they where where like they have Mad Max screening or Danger Diabolic, and then they're playing like the music live to the cinema.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
so that's a thing, and I think it's really interesting that is also in wrestling the case, because I
Um,
think it works very well, especially since wrestling harkens back to the days of the circus, and they also worked, of course, with music. So that's very
check
interesting.
it's on YouTube. The first episode of Tales from the Territories. It's the
Mhm.
Memphis episode. You know, Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, and stuff like that. So check it out if you can. It's on the Vice
Yes,
Network.
I will check it out because that sounds very awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see.
But yeah, I think it must have been an experience watching this movie like in 1922 in a small cinema with live music.
It would have been nice to just how people experience that watching this type of movie. You know, like did they feel the terror of Nosferatu? You know, when he came on screen and have that same reactions that the actors had. You know, so it like I said, it's different eras, different style of movies, and it's silent, but it's definitely worth the watch. You know,
Yeah,
I would definitely like if I were to recommend this movie, I would like go into this movie knowing that it is 1922. It is a silent movie. It's expressionism, you know, and it's not the type of horror that you're accustomed to.
yeah.
It's you
It's
know,
it's the granddaddy of them all.
yeah.
I
But
think
like I
yeah,
said,
I think that's a good analogy. Since it's the same nowadays when you talk with a modern wrestling fan, and you say, oh, when you watch WrestleMania 10, when you watch WrestleMania 1, like this, or WrestleMania 3, these legendary matches. Of course, when you go in there and expect like a modern match, you're gonna be disappointed.
yeah, you know, you can't go back and watch a Bruno Sammartino match and expect him
Yeah,
to jump off the top rope and stuff. Like, no, you know, like back then, them guys were actually, you know, went at it in the ring. But yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I definitely want to like hear your reaction when you watch that Memphis, because that Memphis episode on Memphis Wrestling was really good, man. It
Yeah,
was really good.
maybe. Yeah, next year in January, maybe we should also do finally a wrestling episode again, and we're gonna talk Ready to Rumble.
I knew it was coming. Cause did you watch Wrestling Bios on his final blunder? He talked about
Oh yeah,
David Arquette.
I think I should watch that. Yeah, now I need to watch the documentary
Yeah,
with
I
him.
need to watch
Yeah,
that too. It's amazing how much guilt he felt, you know, thanks to Russo and them putting the belt on him.
yeah, fucking Vince Russo. Like I said on the comic hall crew, that I think that David Feige is the Vince Russo of the MCU.
Yeah.
With the
Damn,
only
that's
difference that people are eating up his shit.
even Kevin Feige would feel like that's insulting to him. And Vince Russo, that dude defended all his stuff that he's done. I was like, man, I can't agree with you on that, bro.
It's like one of my favorite.
It's
Uh, hmm?
it's hard watching WCW 2000, man.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It
It's
was not a
hard,
good time.
and Vince Russo's a huge part of that too.
Yeah, it's it's like especially since I truly love WCW way more than W. Like personally, I give a fuck of the Generation X. Like I don't care about that era.
Hey,
I don't
it,
care. I was a
at
WCW.
that time, fuck anything with Shawn Michaels because I was the Hitman fan. I was the Heart
Yeah.
Foundation fan,
Oh,
so I hated Shawn Michaels.
yeah.
Yeah, WCW. Like when I first started watching them with Sting and Flair, I was like, man, this is different from WWF, man. I kind of liked it. And
Yeah.
you know, when Hogan got there, I'm like, oh shit, now it's WWF in WCW. I don't know how I feel about this because I like the Hogan in WWF, but in WCW, it's like WCW had a different feel to it. It was more about wrestling and less about the characters.
Yeah,
But
I still have to say, and that I'm also very alone in that opinion. I really love the Dungeon of Doom.
Dungeon of Doom,
I really love the Dungeon of Doom. Like, actually, there was
hey,
this stuff when I
they,
watched the WCW and was like, I liked
and it's funny you mention that because Vice, it's not on the YouTube page. You gotta have the Vice network, but they did an episode talking about Kevin Sullivan and his Army of Darkness in Florida.
Yeah.
And they also talk about Florida Championship Wrestling, in the 80s when Kevin Sullivan was doing all that stuff. He was like the first evil anarchist in wrestling.
Oh, yeah. The Booker Man. How Pillman would say.
Booker Man. Nice.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, Nosferatu is really, it's it's a good horror movie, but it's the shadow it casts over the cinematic history, of course, is way larger than the movie itself. So I think when you watch the movie and you expect, this movie that gave birth to the whole vampire movie genre, you're gonna be disappointed because you would expect too much from it. But if you watch it and see it, as the origin of the depiction of vampires in movies, to just to watch it out of interest, I think you will really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it was a good way to close out, this month of
Since
horror movie.
100 years old.
Yeah, this 100-year-old movie we talked about today, and
and that's the yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because like we said, when the movie came out, Dracula was still under copyright and not in the public domain, since it was written in 1897, which was only like 25 years before Nosferatu.
And that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, you probably still got the first edition of Dracula for a good price back then.
And after this movie, man, it came a horde of vampire movies, a bunch of them. And now it's embedded in everybody's minds that vampire movies come out almost every other year.
Yeah.
But it was great, like starting off the month.
Shrek was before Lugosi. Lugosi was the second. Lugosi was the first official Dracula.
Nice. But it's funny, we started out the month with Blackula, of all things. William Marshall's performance in that was like top tier. It's like if he was Dracula, I wouldn't have a problem with it because he has that quality of it of performing the Dracula, and I think he would have done a better job than the guy who played Dracula in Blackula. So
for sure. Actually, I think it would be a really interesting movie, like to have like a battle royale of famous vampires.
Yeah, man, it would have been awesome. Christopher Lee.
Like we said last time, Christopher Lee's Dracula versus Blackula, that would have been a fantastic movie, which totally could have been possible at that point. This is the sad part. It was like not out of the world for this to happen.
They were still in their primes in that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great month.
I watched the remake. Kinski is so fantastic. Since he was a real life monster, he's so good at portraying a monster on screen.
That's his middle name. I mean,
That's the thing. That's the thing with Klaus Kinski is, I hate and love him so much at the same time. I absolutely have all the disgust for the person Kinski, but as an actor, I'm so happy that back then canceling was not a thing. Since, when you watch The Great Silence and when you watch when he plays Dracula, Orlok, it's, he makes the movies better.
it's a testament to his talent. You
Yeah,
know, like this man is despised. He's disturbed. He's, you know, not somebody that you want to ever root for at all because of the person he is. But then when you see him on screen and you see his performance, it's like, why is he like this in real life when he has this talent that is just unmeasurable?
yeah. Let's just say the fact that he's dead makes it so much easier enjoying his movies. And I accept a lot of things, but the things that he did to his daughter are like unforgivable.
You
Like
know,
that shit is like nope.
it's horrible. It's
Mm.
horrible. And
And not only his
it
daughter,
it's I would say it's almost similar to the Chris Benoit situation. It's like you love Benoit as a wrestler, but then that ending, you know, with him and
yeah.
it's like it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth that you're enjoying his matches, knowing that, you know, and that I definitely understand people who don't watch his matches because of that
It's
horrible
so
events.
it's so creepy. It feels like it was 2 weeks before this whole shit happened. That I watched him live when the WWE was in Vienna. It was so crazy, like 2 weeks before to cheer him on, and to have really having like right before my eyes, and then 2 weeks later, like he did this horrible crime.
And it sucks, man, because
Yeah,
he was a great wrestler, and like I said, his talent was top tier. It's just the crime committed at the end is like it just put a big ass asterisk next to his name.
exactly. Yeah. It's the thing, like I can still watch these matches and enjoy them. I can totally understand why the WWE like erased him from history, which is also sad because of all the other talent that had these fantastic matches and fantastic moments. And so posthumously, you also robbed Eddie Guerrero of this
Yes,
WrestleMania.
yes,
Both were celebrating the win, which was this huge moment, especially for the radicals, for the cruiserweights that came from WWE and raised and worked himself to the top. So he also like he stole these moments from his best friends, and it's just
the Eddie Guerrero's death really hurted him.
yeah,
I mean, it hurt a lot of people, man. I remember being saddened when I heard the news, but it really affected Benoit to the most.
yeah, and that's also so crazy because I also watched some stuff about El Guerrero the last weeks. We are older now than Eddie Guerrero was when he died.
Sad.
It's yeah, way too soon, way too soon.
Like I said, we never know when we go.
Yeah,
So it's how your exit is, and like I said, nobody wants to remember Benoit's final days because it's a stain on in the world of not only wrestling but just entirely, you know, a stain on life when you do something like that.
yeah. That's also why we still have to have something that keeps us going. Like with Cornette, where he says he needs to get healthier, he needs to live on because on one day he wants to piss on Vince Russo's grave. So he gotta survive Vince Russo.
I think he's gonna make that happen. Even if he's in the fucking wheelchair, he's still gonna trust somebody to whip it out so he can do it.
Even if it's like a fucking catheter and he has like to just press the urine on his grave.
Oh, that's one WrestleMania main event I'll pay to see. Vince Russo versus James E. Cornette. Oh. I'm not sure if there's a Biggie show tonight.
Oh yeah.
Motivation set.
Also, B, stay strong. I hope things get better.
Yeah,
So it's totally understandable if B has no show today, and I really hope that Yeah, he posted like his mom has having health problems. So if anybody has some positive thoughts, send them right to Biggie.
Yeah, man. Biggie, a big part of this community. He is part of the community that we love, because
Yeah,
he's true to himself, and he's welcoming to anybody that wants to join his platform, and we just have fun, just showing off books and talking shit.
I do have to
So
say that I miss a little bit Savage Biggie, the early Biggie. that
hey man, sometimes you mellow out, and I definitely will say that, guys like myself, Man Cave and stuff like, when we get together and do these live streams, Biggie's like mellow out now. He's with people that he loves, that he loves hanging around with. So,
yeah,
he's no longer the savage Biggie that he was a couple years ago.
yeah,
But he can transform into that when he wants. When he has
absolutely.
to, he will transform into that.
I missed it. I miss like his old intro where it's just like, "What you when I like just mimicking Hulk Hogan is
Yeah.
what you gonna do, bro? It's nothing."
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Plus
really
if I get more chances to meet wrestlers, man, I'm getting anything autographed and sent it Biggie's way, man.
yeah.
'Cause, I do miss the Make a Power Hour, man.
Oh yeah, that was it. I was lucky to be on it once.
Yeah, man, I remember that episode.
Yeah, that was a blast.
He like, man, if it wasn't for these time zones, man, VV would do more live streams for everybody.
Absolutely. Like I said, I would love to spend more time with Biggie, with Man Cave, with all the OGs, with all the people where I can just talk freely and have fun, like uncensored fun.
Exactly. Exactly. Keep all that negative bullshit out. All the spec talk and stuff like that. I don't want to talk that. I really
Yeah.
don't. I'd rather just talk about our comics, what we're collecting. I mean, I'm close to getting my complete Conan run, which woo! Shout out to Stone Cold Steve and Byron and Jeff and all those guys, man. I love hanging out with those guys, man.
Yeah.
And whenever I get a chance, man, it's just the excitement builds whenever I get to hang out with those guys.
Very envious for that. Very envious for that.
And hopefully we want to bring back Silver Age Sunday, and get together and do something like that, but we're still trying to get the kinks out on how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Time wise, everybody has so many projects, work. It's really tough.
yeah. And I haven't been up to doing the live show on my channel, but hopefully eventually I'll do one and see if I
Yeah.
get the
I
spirit
also
to do it back.
I missed the Saturday show. That was always very nice.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, I kept getting more competition every time. People come do live streams on when I'm doing it. So, but it didn't really matter because I remember that time when Man Cave popped on. After he was on the live stream.
And it's always like when Man Cave is on a live stream, something legendary happens.
I know.
Like
Yeah. Shout
his
out.
holes are a little bit different from those of other people.
Got those. But did you see Matt's haul? Matt's recent haul on the Common Hall crew.
I still have to watch it one. I thought that last week was a live. I only
Yeah.
saw it before it was scheduled, but I think that I was already asleep when it ran, so I really have to rewatch
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt also always has some really interesting hauls. I love those, especially when he digs into the golden age.
Yeah. And then he
This,
getting
this
into
for
the
me
Hulk.
always way more interesting, when I see a haul where what people really love to collect. I always hate when I see a haul video and then I see the same 10 spec books everywhere, where I'm like, who cares about that? It's the
That's
same
why I'm
thing.
happy.
So those two brothers comics, the most interesting videos are when Dustin is getting some Power Rangers or Mortal Kombat comics, like stuff that not everybody has. Like I'm
Yeah.
interested in, like I like to learn. It's like, oh, what Mortal Kombat comics are there? Like personally, I have no idea. Even though I like Mortal Kombat, but it's
Wait, so you didn't know there was Mortal Kombat comics?
I knew there were Mortal Kombat comics, but I had no idea that which which ones were first, which ones like rare. I don't think we got those back in the days. I think the first we got maybe were with Mortal Kombat 10.
Yeah, because I picked up like a couple years ago. It was like maybe 2 or 3 issues of the '90s Mortal Kombat comics. I was like, oh, I didn't know they had '90s Mortal Kombat comics. So I was like, they were $1 a piece. So I was like, let me grab them. And then they also had '90s Street Fighter comics when it was under Malibu.
So I have the polyback of the Street Fighter movie adaptation with a guy
Nice,
trading card inside.
nice. Which guy? Jean Claude.
Naturally.
Nice. But yeah, I know they had Mortal Kombat comics a couple years ago when Mortal Kombat 10 came out. But other than that, I just know of the '90s one.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to watch stuff. What is like new information to see somebody collecting something they truly love. It's always frustrating when you see like a whole list and you see, okay, you just bought something from a character you didn't even know existed 2 weeks earlier.
Plus, I'm getting the kick each post I make on Instagram. I'm getting the kick out of reading these ghost books, man.
Oh yeah, those DC like also Horse of Mystery, etc. Those
Yeah,
are like some
all
classic
those
horror stories.
all those anthologies. I get a kick out of reading these.
Yeah.
For the week.
What I totally recommend is the Shudder magazine and the Vampirus Camilla magazine. Old school horror stories in black and white on
Man,
newsprint.
did you watch the video? When I was at Dark Side Comics,
I
because
still have to watch it. I haven't
they
a lot
had
of time to watch anything this week.
they had a couple of modern heavy metal books up there. I was considering buying one, but I already had like a handful of comics that I was like, yeah, I'm set spending. But I was like, man, these recent heavy metal books. I looked through it and I was like, man, some of these stories got some good art in it. I want to
There is
check
some
it out.
really good, like the recent heavy metal, since they're also reprinting a lot of Franco-Belgian comics right now. There's some really good storylines in there. The biggest problem that I have with the modern heavy metal, I mean, I'm subscribed to it, so for me it's not so much a problem because I'm getting them every month. But I think they are very tough when you just buy random ones, and suddenly 80% of the stories in there are like continuations of stories from earlier books. So it's very hard to jump on point. This is my
Yeah,
personal criticism of heavy metal, that they have too many stories that are continuing. So I don't think that this is quite wise in terms of sales.
that is a bit of a handicap
Yeah.
because you know the older heavy metals and even the epic illustrations had like some continuing stories, but you had a lot of one offs. A lot of one
Yes.
shot stories and anthologies and stuff like that. So I if it's a continuing story, I'm like, I'll wait to read that until I get the previous issue. But all the other ones I can read, because they're like one shots.
Exactly. You want to have like a very good mixture of it in there. So
Yeah,
when you buy it, I always laughed it when I bought like some anthology book when I was a kid, and there were some stories, of course, that were like one-offs, interesting, and the other stories were like, oh, I have to get also the other ones, which is actually exactly the way how you should do it. Like you give people their money's worth with one-shots, and you put in like continuation stories so that people pick up like a back issue or the next one.
yeah, exactly. But I was like, damn, them covers are gorgeous. Though. I was like, I feel like picking one up. But yeah, it was a pretty good shop. Had those heavy metals.
Yeah, I still have to watch. I hope I'm gonna have time. Probably not the weekend since it's Halloween, so I'm having lots of movies on the watch list. I think tomorrow I'm gonna rewatch Demon Knight with Billy Zane.
Oh man, I've been wanting to rewatch that since last year because I watch that almost every year, but I have not gotten the chance to watch it.
And of
So I,
course, Sunday it's Devil's Night, and it's time to rewatch The Crow.
yes, yes, that's almost like tradition.
That
That,
has to be. So maybe in the future we should also make a double feature with Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, even
I
though
love
Bordello of
Demon
Blood
Knight,
is
man.
just a Dustin Dawn rip.
Yeah, but the old blood was it was fine. I enjoyed aspects of it, but Demon Knight was my jam. Of
Yeah,
course,
Demon Knight is
Billy Zane, man.
fucking busy. The Phantom.
Yeah, we still gotta talk to Phantom too. So
We need to make like a Billy Zane special. This sniper. Oh yeah, Tom Berenger also such a fantastic actor. With Tom Berenger, of course, we still have to talk the Cleveland Indian movies.
yeah, Major League. Hey, when baseball season start up,
And
Major League, baby.
exactly. Then we can have Black Thunder and White Lightning.
It's funny because I love Wesley Snipes in the first movie, but I didn't think Omar F did a bad job in the second one.
He didn't do a bad job. I also remember when I watched it the first time. Since I watched Major League after I watched Demolition Man, of course. And after Demolition Man, it's like, yeah, fucking Wesley Snipes. Uh, and and I was like, oh no, in the sequel, like in the sequel, there's no Wesley Snipes, but he really grows on you.
Yeah, I thought Omar did a great job in that. But yeah, we definitely opening season of baseball next year. We
Yeah.
starting off with Major League.
I still have no idea how the rules are of baseball.
Don't worry about it, man. What you see in the movie is exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's like stuff is happening, and then there's a
Hey,
break.
hey, and speaking of baseball, the fucking first Naked Gun when the baseball scene in Naked Gun.
Pavarotti.
That's on the docket for next year too. The Naked Gun trilogy.
The Naked Gun movie. Since also with the Naked Gun movies, you also have a nice Hulk Hogan scene.
Yeah. Or was that the Spy
Hockey.
Hard when Hulk Hogan?
Right. That was
Then,
like one of the less news
yeah,
movies.
when he tagged in Hogan, the Hogan.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was Spy Hard.
that could have been Die Hard, yeah. But still, it still counts somehow.
But yeah, that's definitely on the docket for next year, man.
And next Friday, we're gonna start with the Rocky movies, Rocky 1 and 2, next Friday.
Oh man, it's going to be a joy revisiting these movies.
Absolutely, it's gonna be interesting because on Friday I'm still in Vienna, so I have to take like a bus as the train from Vienna. But I just hope the train is not it's not gonna be catastrophe. But I will make it in time somehow.
Yes, because we need to start Rocky franchise, Rocky versus Apollo. Oh man, it's gonna be top notch, man. Carl Weathers is back in the scene on talking movies.
Yeah, it's gonna be an epic November with all the Rocky and the Green movies.
Yes, and nice anticipation for Creed 3 next year.
It's gonna. I really hope they settled everything with Stallone.
Yeah, but I could kind of see like Stallone's story being done and just moving forward with Creed. Because it's almost similar to how Mickey, when Mickey's story was done in the third Rocky movie, and then they just moved on with Rocky. So it's kind of like similar to that.
Yeah, but I think it still is very important to have like Stallone on the good side.
Yeah, but
and this is the thing. That is one thing that I love so much about Stallone. The way he values the characters he created. Like he always treats them. You won't get a silly Rambo. You won't get a silly Rocky.
Well, I say we got a silly Rambo and Hot Shots Part Duets. We got that, but nice parody on there.
Yeah, we already talked about that one.
Yes.
Glorious 1993 spoof movie special. We still have to talk about Top Secret in the future.
But yeah, I'm so looking forward to next week, man. But again, it was a great Halloween month. Some great picks.
Yes.
We the Chipmunks last week, a Bad Hair the previous week. So it was a pretty solid month.
From Blackula to Nosferatu. It was an epic October, epic Spooktober.
And it was a nice diverse month too.
Yeah,
Blackula, Bad Hair would surprise me. When we talked about that movie and how that movie was impactful. And then we talked about Chipmunks. Like who would have talking about Chipmunks? But I love the Chipmunks. You love the Chipmunks. It made perfect sense.
the Bloody Chipmunks movie has 100 hits.
Exactly. So it was a great month, man.
Fantastic, man.
And this was the third Halloween that we celebrated. For the month of October.
It's dating us more and more.
Yep. But it's like it gets better and better every time we do these.
Yeah, it's like we can maybe make like a time lapse, like when we have the 10th time and everybody has like white hair.
But yeah, great month, and looking forward to next.
Exactly, and maybe then we're gonna have like also the 200-year special of Nosferatu, when we're just like like just virtual beings,
Yep.
or we're haunting YouTube. Ooh.
And I also want to give a special shout out to High Leg Comic Bro, our only chat member.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us, bro.
exactly. And
I would. I would.
watch Shadow of the Vampire. Also, I totally recommend watch Shadow of the Vampire, since it's so crazy to have like a movie that pretends that Mark Shrek was actually a real vampire.
Yep.
So I think there's still a pause of the comical crew.
Uh, no show tomorrow, but we'll be back next week, and we're probably going to discuss Black Adam since that was the big talk. You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for it to be on the streaming service.
All right.
But I heard good
I
things
enjoyed
about it.
it though. I enjoyed it though.
Yeah, but it's like for especially for the recent like DC movies and stuff. I'm like, it's gonna end up on a streaming service anyway, and I have no rush to watch anything.
I know one thing. I will be in theaters to see Black Panther. All the premiere and stuff. I'm like, man, I'm looking forward to this movie just to see how they incorporate the whole thing. Now that we no longer have
Yeah.
Chadwick Boseman, and
I still think they should have recast because they think that they that's I mean Boseman was a fantastic Black Panther, and the way he carried himself through the sickness
I
and everything, it's basically he's like a real life hero. But I always think that the role is bigger than the actor.
that's why I think for how he carried himself and that he was sick doing this role, I felt like he overshadowed the character based on for that, and that's why people have such a hard time recasting him because of
Absolutely, yeah.
how he
Absolutely, yeah.
so the fact that he continued to work while he was sick, it really like put him above the character, and
And
it
by the
made
way, because I just have this randomly laying here, if you want to have a good read for Halloween, it also has the Black Panther in it.
nice.
With
I
John,
love that issue.
yeah,
I, I
with,
love that issue.
with Baron Macabre. Zombie action in Wakanda. Fantastic read, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I picked that up last year and I read it. I was like, man, this is a really good read. I love that Jungle Action run. I have the Epic Collection, and from beginning to end, it's just top notch.
Yeah, it's the also the art. It's really a fantastic read, and I also recommend like getting the Epic collection of it, since there's also some pricey books in that run. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, lots of under. I also think there's a lot of underrated stories. Are like in these Marvel feature books, like Channel Edge who featured that, and also what was the other one called? The Marvel comic features, of course, and what was the other? I forgot. Yeah, Creatures on the Loose, Monsters on the Prowl. Like you have so many fantastic stories in there.
Like I said, a lot of those Marvel and DC Bronze Age horror and fantasy stuff is top notch.
Yeah,
So
absolute recommend. And again, Sean, thank you for being here, having this fantastic talk about a 100-year-old movie.
yep, it was great. It was great.
And I'm very much looking forward to next week when we're gonna talk the most motivating movie franchise in the world. Where
Oh
basically
man.
every movie has a motivational quote in there that you can use every day to get the best results for
And
any
and 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 it has the greatest motivational song ever. Ever.
fucking tiger. And of course, the Rocky theme is also like dun, dun,
Classic.
also it's a classic. So can't wait for that. And like you said before, thanks to Hialeah Comics in the live chat. Thanks to everybody who watching it on Rewind and watches until the end. It's like, wow, thank you.
Thanks.
So, and I hope to see every one of you next Friday when we're gonna talk Rocky. So, until then, have a fucking savage Halloween.
Happy Halloween, y'all.
Halloween. Bye bye.